What is up, everybody? It is me, DevilNeverCry, and this is a short boss guide on Cerberus in Devil May Cry 3. As always, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on anything and everything in Devil May Cry. But getting back to today's video and its topic, perhaps you've picked up Devil May Cry 3 on the Switch. Maybe you're a newcomer, or it's been a while since you've played DMC 3. But missions 1 and 2 are fairly smooth sailing, and then you get to the dreaded Mission 3. The mission that truly separates the wheat from the chaff, the first roadblock in the journey that is Devil May Cry 3. I'm of course talking about Cerberus. This is going to be a short guide, and I'm going to be covering this boss in two difficulties. I'll be covering it first in normal mode, using only the base weapons that you start out with and sticking to only one style, so that people that are playing on both original and freestyle can sort of learn from this guide. And then the second part of the guide is going to be me going through it on Dante Must Die. Same sort of strategy, but different tactics and such, considering I have access to all the styles and all the weapons and Devil Trigger and things like that. And before we begin, I'd just like to make note that this is not going to be a no damage, ultra clean, smooth sailing run of Cerberus. This is going to be me just going in on my first run for both of these, which I guess I've played Cerberus enough now to know that I can just beat him, without having to think about it. But I'll be taking damage, mainly because I like to damage race Cerberus. I tend to do that with most bosses in this game, to be honest, because I get quite impatient. The only person who actually makes me have to stop and think about what I'm doing is Virgil, Virgil 2 and 3 in particular. But this is going to be sort of something that everybody can essentially do, and you're not going to have to meticulously beat your head against the wall for hours learning Cerberus. So without further ado, everybody, let's just dive right in with the normal mode run. So diving directly into the run, Cerberus is going to start out with all three of his heads covered in ice, and you're going to want to use ebony and ivory to fire away with some normal shots to whittle off the ice on his heads. Once that's done, you'll be able to go in there with some aerial attacks with the Rebellion in Swordmaster style and whittle away large chunks of its health. You want to take note of its attacks. Each of its different heads will do a different attack, so pay attention to which head is actually in the middle. That's just something you can learn simply by choice, but you're going to see here that eventually I'm going to stun Cerberus a fair amount. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you take the ice off of all three heads and then go into attack. Each of the heads has its own hitbox, and Dante's aerial attacks have a wide hurt box, meaning that you can hit multiple heads with one attack, stacking the damage over and over, and you're going to stun the boss, which is actually what I do here. I'm going to skip a lot of his patterns, quite frankly, because I do so much damage. But eventually, Cerberus is going to do a massive aerial effect attack where he slams his paws into the ground, and there's going to be a bunch of ice sort of shooting up, and Cerberus is going to turn red. And this is going to happen roughly around its halfway point, or roughly 2 cycles of the ice being taken off and coming back on. The only reason it didn't take 2 cycles in this fight is simply because I just destroyed the boss. But essentially, Cerberus is going to become more aggressive when his skin turns red. His attacks are going to come out faster. He's going to chain more attacks one after the other. You want to be careful that you're not sticking around to the side of him too much near his paws, because he will swipe at you, and if Cerberus does rear back for a second, you want to get out of the way almost immediately, because he's going to charge forward, knocking you back and doing a large amount of damage. You just essentially want to make sure that you're jumping and constantly staying on the move. The reason I say jump around a lot is because the jump has a bunch of invincibility frames, and considering it is one button that you have to press, it's a lot easier to perform than a dodge roll, which is multiple inputs, which you have to think about, and you'll probably end up taking too much time putting the inputs in and getting hit. So you want to stay on top of Cerberus. Obviously I made it look kind of easy here, and Cerberus really is fairly easy, just as long as you stay aggressive. I myself had the issue when I first faced this boss years and years ago, where I was too meek or too scared to get in Cerberus's face because I was afraid of taking damage. But as you can see, I barely had to do any dodging. I didn't take advantage of any super crazy tactics like using Devil Trigger or using other weapons. These are all things you have access to right at the start of the game, so there's no reason why you on normal mode can't do the same. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Dante Must Die mode, which we're going to dive into right now. So moving on to Dante Must Die mode, we're going to be using a similar strategy to a normal mode. You're still going to have to whittle away that ice and then get in there with some aerial attacks. Only this time, Cerberus has got a higher health pool and he hits like a goddamn truck. Of course, that's not going to stop me in my stupid antics. I essentially am going to get impatient with this boss and I'm just going to get in its face and do some damage. It eventually works, but I would recommend being more cautious than me. So first of all, you're going to notice right off the bat I'm using Agni and Rudra a lot, essentially because Cerberus has an elemental weakness to Agni because it is a fire-based weapon and Cerberus is an ice-based demon. You're going to see me utilize a little bit of Quicksilver here. I kind of make a mistake in using it too early. What you want to try and do is you want to try and get in Cerberus's face, stun it by essentially hitting it a lot of times in rapid succession, and then pop your Quicksilver, and that way you'll do a lot more damage, and you can essentially almost one-cycle this boss if you know what you're doing, kind of like I did during the normal mode run. You're going to want to be careful because Cerberus does have some new attacks in Dante Must Die mode. So he's going to have this very quick and very snappy bite attack which has almost no wind up and it'll do essentially from point blank range. Cerberus will also like to headbutt a lot more often, so again you want to be careful. Make sure that you're obviously paying attention to what head is in the middle of its body because again that will dictate what exactly Cerberus will do or what attack will come out next. You're going to notice that Cerberus also has less recovery time on some of his attacks. For example, the forward lunge, he'll throw that out very quickly. Again, the timing is different, it gets quicker the higher the difficulty. And then the recovery is almost non-existent as Cerberus sort of rubber bands right back into his original position. One thing that I didn't mention actually in the initial normal mode run is that Cerberus's legs can take damage. It will be chip damage, it won't be a lot of damage, so if you think you're going to be able to stand there on the side and whittle away at its legs, sorry to burst that bubble, but that is not going to happen. But if you need to get a boss winning hit or boss killing move, you can whittle away at the legs DMC2 style or go in for a cheeky stinger and that will work. Again, I'd suggest being more careful than what I'm doing here. I take a lot of unnecessary damage simply because I was not really paying as much attention as I should have, but that should inspire some of you with confidence. I know there are a lot of players out there who have a lot more patience than I do and are smarter than to try and damage race a boss on Dante Must Die mode because, hoo boy, Dante will die very quickly. I kind of contemplated actually using another run of this that I had recorded, which was a little bit boring because I kind of just didn't really take all that much damage, and it kind of just included me sort of staying back a lot more and picking my moments as to when I did damage. But I think this is more representative of what people are going to try and do on Dante Must Die mode because every instinct in your body is telling you to get in there and just destroy this thing as fast as possible before it does you in. One strategy that I don't mention or don't show here is a spiral guard cancelling or weapon switching technique. You essentially jam yourself in the far left hand corner, equip spiral and fire away at the boss. It doesn't do all that much damage and it does take a long time and you are still vulnerable to attacks. I believe you have to use Ice Age for attacks. Essentially the only attack that can reach you is the attack that Cerberus does when he throws ice at you from the ceiling, and again you use Ice Age to cover yourself in a 360-degree radius. But again, if I did that, this video would probably be almost 3 times as long, and I guess it might be worth it if you're trying to do a no damage run, but then ultimately if you're going for an S rank it might destroy your time and it might stop you from getting the S rank altogether. But that will essentially be it for Cerberus here on normal mode and Dante Must Die. Again, just make sure you're aggressive, try and dodge the key attacks. Over time, by playing more and more against Cerberus, you'll start to sort of subconsciously pick up his patterns and know what exactly which head will do what attack. But as long as you are attentive to what he does, you will prevail. Let me know down in the comments below if you like Cerberus as a boss. He's one of my favourite bosses in this game, and in fact one of my favourite weapons in this game, along with Nevin. And obviously the main roadblock after this boss is going to be Agni and Rudra, who again isn't too tricky unless you decide to defeat one well before the other, and then hoo boy, that's when you start to run into some big problems. But that is going to be it for this video. Of course, if you enjoyed today's video, do be sure to leave a like. If you want to get at me on social, I have a link to my Twitter in the description. If you want to get at me in the channel's Discord server, it does have its own Discord server by the way, there'll be a link to that in the description as well. And with all of that said and done, people, it has been me, DevilNeverCry. I would like to thank all of you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next video.